Welcome to the 8th day of August 2025. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation. This is an exercise that I do every morning, a little bit after waking up, to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone, which you can read for free at goingalone.org. I also use this time to think about the last 24 hours and how I did with any unique and interesting challenges or opportunities that I met, if I handled them well or poorly, so that I can examine to either do better if they were poorly handled or to do more of the same if it was well handled. I go over the 8 objectives of my creed and I plan for the coming day. But first, hello to new subscribers. It's good to have you on the channel. Quick note of who I am. My name is Kurt. I'm like I said, 61-year-old retired guy living here, American, living here in Japan with my 61-year-old Japanese wife. We've been here about 7 months. This is our 3rd time to return to life in Japan, our 5th time total for my wife and I to transition wholesale between the United States and America. So, but this is the last time, so we're settled in for good now. The last 7 months have been very interesting. Lots of challenges. It turns out that, oh, and I'm retired. I think if I didn't mention that, it turns out that being retired is harder than I imagined. So I kind of suspected that might be the case because a couple of people warned me, but I'm finding my way through. Also, this video and any of the videos you see in the Good Life series are personal journal videos. So I'm at liberty to discuss anything that I want, to go on and on about myself, to compliment myself or criticize myself, and to talk about very insensitive, or what may be sensitive subjects to others, like death or my lack of belief in God, which seems to unsettle some people. Just be forewarned that I do sometimes go to those places and others. Lastly, before I get started in earnest, a huge thank you to my those who watch my videos, who are my members on YouTube, and my Patreon supporters. And a reminder to members, YouTube members and Patreon supporters, I do have discount codes for you available to use in my eBay store, which you can find by just simply going to my eBay homepage. Not my eBay store, my YouTube store. The code won't work in the eBay store; it only works in the YouTube store. I said that perfectly incorrectly. So if you go to my YouTube channel and find the store tab, your coupon codes can be used there for any product in there. They're good forever, and I thank you very much for your support. All right, let's start. I keep notes every day, and what I like to do for the first section, this is part 2 of this exercise. The first part is the disclaimer. The next part is to go over the last 24 hours. Now, sometimes it's helpful to have a look at yesterday's objectives to see how I did relative to that. But before I do that, I almost forgot again to go over the weather check. It's currently about 5:35 a.m. here in Japan. And at 5:35 a.m. it is 28.5 Celsius and pretty low humidity, 72. So we should have a little bit milder weather, a bit of a cloudy day. Yesterday was absolutely almost unlivable. My dear wife Yumiko came up with a great idea. This is my room right next to me here where I live basically. And then right adjacent to it is an empty room with a perfectly serviceable air conditioner. I don't have an air conditioner unit in my room. I'll get one next summer. She said, why don't you move into my room? She said her room, the one next door, for the rest of the summer to get through this heat. So I did yesterday. Worked great. There we go with the temperature and humidity, both in the red. As you can see, not very comfortable. So turning now to the last 24 hours in yesterday's plan. The plan for yesterday was to do 2 things. Prep for my drive meeting. We had some stuff to do to prepare for. Today I'm going to the Japanese equivalent of the Department of Motor Vehicles to hopefully get my Japanese driver's license reinstated. And we had to do some paperwork yesterday for that. And so I did that. Yes, successful. Completed that. I'm ready to go to the DMV. Just have to change my clothes to look a little more presentable. That'll be at 1 o'clock this afternoon. And then I had to fill out some paperwork, which I always dread, to get paid for a TV show that is using some videos from one of my old videos on YouTube. And I successfully filled that out. Turns out that was dirt simple to do. Filled that out. I got that done before breakfast. So then left me with the rest of the day pretty well engaged. So in terms of fulfilling yesterday's thing, I did everything I needed to do yesterday. I even went to the post office and shipped an order. No, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'm not here to talk about what I did, although it's useful, excuse me, even though I don't want to give you a recount of what I did yesterday. I do want to check if I fulfilled the things I set out to do. That's important, right? If I told myself in the morning, I'm going to do these 3 things, I should look back to the next day and say, did I do at least the 3 things that I required of myself? Usually I require no more than 1 thing, but I had 2 yesterday. Did I do both of those things? I did. So good. Yesterday was a good day in that capacity. There must be 40 dragonflies flying all about me right now. You might be able to see them passing by over here. Wow, everywhere. But what I'm really interested in about yesterday is the exceptional stuff. And my only note from yesterday was I kept to the plan. So no, nothing exceptional happened yesterday. I wasn't exceptionally challenged, and I didn't encounter any exceptional opportunities that I could capitalize on. I simply executed the day's plan. There was one small thing, come to think of it. In the evening, we take the dogs on 3 dog walks a day. Morning, noon, and evening. And on the evening dog walk, I got separated from Yumiko and Yoko, who were walking ahead. My dog, Rudy, is a very slow walker. So it's not uncommon and Yoko and Yumiko are usually walking with Ollie, the black dog, who walks faster, even though he's older. He gets ahead and we often have this big buffer between us because Ollie's ahead and Rudy's lagging. And I don't like to drag Rudy, and they don't like to hold him back. So it's natural for us to morning and lunchtime walk. Yoko's not there so Yumiko and I are together, and that walk goes more apace. You know, it must be Yoko. I think Yoko likes to walk fast too, and that's why they go ahead. Also, they had like 6 months of practice before I came to Japan. Or was it more than 6 months? Yeah, no, it was about 8 or 9 months of practice before I came to Japan, walking together. So I think they kind of have their own pace. Anyway, the long and short of it is, the evening walk, we're not usually walking together, the ladies, and they have so much to talk about. They chat in Japanese, so I'm really not in that bubble, and that's just fine with me. I use that time walking behind to listen to podcasts, or I have long talks with ChatGPT. Last night was just such a thing, and I was in the back having a talk with ChatGPT about statistics, which I'm very interested in. Particularly, I was learning about not statistics necessarily, but the mathematical principle of the law of large numbers. And I was trying to understand how the law of large numbers related to statistics. This is all about business, and specifically how if there was any connection with long-tail marketing. So I was, Yoko and Yumiko were up ahead with Ollie, talking away in Japanese. I was behind with the earphones in my head, talking to ChatGPT. I had actually asked ChatGPT to go into instructor mode, statistics professor mode, and to give me a lesson about the aforementioned subject. So we were deeply engaged in it, and I realized at one point that I'd lost them. They were gone. I looked around, couldn't find them anywhere, and finally I gave up. And I was just a little tiny bit annoyed because I didn't know where my family had gone. and felt kind of left behind. So but I turned around and Rudy and I made our way home, and by the time I got home, Yumiko was already here. They had gotten way ahead. They'd lost me, and Yumiko had the bath almost ready. I mean, they got home much earlier than me. Turns out that Rudy and I really, so I don't know if it's so much that they left me, or I simply fall behind. I mean, it's one or the other. It's kind of the same thing, right? So the thing is, though, I felt a little bit annoyed that I didn't know where they were. And I used hashtag. When you see me, or no, when you hear me say the word hashtag, I'm referring to a principle in the book. As always, I use hashtag temperance to control my feelings of being left behind, and applied hashtag reason to remember that this is just the way we walk. This isn't the first time this has happened. This is a very incredibly safe community. You know, you could send your teenage girl out to walk that same course with the dog, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. It's a very safe place. No one was in any danger. We just got separate ways. They had furthermore seen me. I remember there was a moment just before I lost them that Ollie and Rudy and I had taken a kind of a different course through the park, and we wound up at the head of the park. They had come up through the body of the park, and we ran into each other. And just as they walked past, ChatGPT had finished a little soliloquy about something about statistics, and I had a very pointed question to ask. And I said in a rather loud voice, so is it true that this would then be that if the long tail market, those who engage in long tail marketing are actually leveraging the law of large numbers? That was the question that I had asked back to ChatGPT. That both Yumiko and Yoko had heard me, and they thought I was talking to them, and they turned around, looked at me, and I was like talking to the robot. Now that's not the first time that's happened either, because often when we're walking our separate ways in the evening, I'm usually listening to podcasts, like I said, or talking to ChatGPT. So they just brushed me off. I think at that point they kind of, distanced themselves from me. They said, "Look, Kurt's off in his own world talking to AI." They off they went. And when they finally went, what happened was that they had made a turn. Later I asked Yumiko, because I said, "I lost track of you guys," and she said, "Well, Ollie wanted to go across the street, which they took a meandering path down. That's where we lost each other. I didn't go across the street. I went up further up the park. Up to the museum." So what I'm trying to say in this long, long story was, for the briefest moment, I felt a little wave of emotion, feeling like I'd left behind. But then I controlled that emotion. Reason kicked in. I said, "This is ridiculous, Kurt. You were utterly ignoring everybody because the two parties were living in separate worlds. This is how we operate. The dogs go their own way. We come together. We always wind up back at the house. What was up with that, Kurt? Let it go." And I did just that. I handled that well. Being human and responding like a stoic. Okay, so good. I covered the last 24 hours. The creed consists of the following 8 objectives: always being ready to die, making good, effective use of time, developing and maintaining good and sound life principles, cultivating good emotional reactions, performing good actions, recognizing my true limits and true opportunities, doing just one thing at a time and doing that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully, maintaining my balance. I think I covered everything. It felt that way. Yesterday's principle that I read was, I have to think, the risk of avoiding risk. Today, sin and damnation. So I'm reading from the book on page 269, principle number 26, sin and damnation. Sub-principles, falsity. Now, let me back up a second. When I talk about sin and damnation, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in God. I don't believe that sin exists, because I don't believe there's any God to sin against. So, and I certainly don't believe in damnation, other than the damnation we impose upon ourselves through our own ideas and the mental constructs that we create. Sub-principles: falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, rumor, and gossip. These would be the items, these would be the characteristics, the traits, the things that we can do that I would constitute in my worldview as being sin. Yes, you heard it right. Faith was in that list. Yes, in my worldview, faith is a sin. Let me read it and then I'll try to explain a little more. And maybe what sounds like heresy. It is a sin to invest our expectations with hope, which may be corrupted or foiled by fortune. Ooh, that's as stoic a statement as I've ever said, huh? It is also a sin to believe things without good reason, to acquiesce for the sake of comfort or security or peace, or to simply avoid the discomfort of not knowing. The penalty for this sin is damnation in the here and now, which is the only time we will ever really have. Damned for our unreasoned want, damned for our unreasoned belief, damned for our thoughtless, careless communications. So let's go over then the types of sin that I'm categorizing here. Remember, these are all, for the most part, essentially secular sins. The first sin is falsity, being untrue. So knowingly so. That's a sin because of the messiness and the complication and the deception that entails. Credulity is a sin. Credulity is believing things too easily, being gullible, basically. It's a sin to not run the propositions which are important through our own mechanism of truth assertion. Credulity is certainly a sin. Faith is a sin. Faith, if we define faith, it depends on how you define it, but I think most people would define faith as belief in absence of good evidence, or in absence of reasonable evidence, which is believing something in spite of the fact that there doesn't appear to be any good reason to think it's true. That is a sin. Do I even need to expand upon why that is a sin? Right? It's credulity taken to the nth degree. Right? Credulity is believing things too readily. Faith is believing things in spite of the fact you don't have a good reason to believe. Now, someone might argue and say, well, I do have good reasons to believe. Well, then you don't need faith, right? Faith is what we use to fill the space where evidence is lacking, right? Faith, therefore, is a sin. It's a much better and a more reasonable thing to say, to simply suspend our decision-making, suspend our belief in the face of an absence of good reasons to believe. Faith, therefore, is a sin. Superstition. Superstition is a kind of a recreational form of credulity, and by virtue of being credulity, it is therefore a sin. But it's worse than that. Being recreational, and also has to often is very tantalizing to the young and to children. It is very sinful because of its contagious nature. Dogma is a sin. Dogma is truth instantiated and codified in tradition, and maybe brought about by virtue of having a very large and impressive book to point to, very old, large, impressive book, like the Bible, to turn to. Dogma also takes the form of ritual, outfits, clothing. Think of a priest all wearing their priestly robes, and in a big church with, organ music and stained glass. Dogma is the dressing up of ideas, whereas we can use a form of credulity to believe, maybe buttressed still further with faith. Authority is basically any belief, the belief that is based upon the perceived credentials of another. Authority could be, a university professor's status, the office that they hold, the lectern that they stand behind. An author's, authority by virtue of the fact that they've written something. Even police officers have some sort of an authority. That all of these things should be perhaps respected if they're worthy of respect, but they certainly shouldn't be the reason to believe what is promoted through the sources of authority by virtue of the authority alone. Rumor and then gossip are the last two, and they go hand in hand. Rumor and gossip are basically buying into ideas that are traded like bubblegum, with little thought to, whether or not they're the truth, they represent truth, is more because for a recreational sense, right? Gossip especially. There's a lot of reasons that just because I'm not religious, just because I'm an atheist, doesn't mean that I think that religion is bad necessarily, or that or that it's not necessarily true. It's just that I haven't found a religion yet that has been able to demonstrate to me, to my satisfaction, a reason to regard their supernatural claims as being true. But they do have some ideas. A lot of religions have some ideas that are very fundamentally sound, like the prohibitions against spreading rumors, right? Rumors and gossip fall into my worldview as sins as well. So sin and damnation represent sins against the due process of ascertaining truth, the ability to manage and measure our communication, and to measure and apprehend the communication of others and the things that they're proposing to be true. Remembering not to use failed or ineffective tools like dogma, authority, or faith as part of our epistemology, and of course to never engage in rumor or gossip. Basically, we can easily protect ourselves from that by not ever talking about someone as if they are not standing there right there with us to hear what we're saying. If we keep that frame of mind, then we can avoid that. That's sin and damnation. Principle number 26, which I should probably talk about more. That's a useful one for sure. Lastly, what am I going to do today? Today we have a lot to do. Dad's going to the clinic this morning. And then I have my appointment at the Japanese Department of Motor Vehicles at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to spend some time this morning, finish this up, go up, do radio exercise, come back here. I'm going to list an antique item. The one I'm going to list this morning is this really beautiful little lacquered bamboo basket with plover birds, a motif that's often seen in Japanese art. That plovers are a type of a seabird that can often be seen racing in small birds, racing just above the waves, and they show up in Japanese art all the time, indicating the effervescent effort of life in the face of the transition, changing, the stormy seas, the rising waves, yet pushing forward. It's an absolutely beautiful motif in Japanese art. The plover birds are very well stylized there in gold lacquer. This is a larger item. This is probably the largest item I will have yet listed. A beautiful item. I'm going to have you listening to that immediately after I finish this video. I'll get the video for that done. 3 comments. Good morning, Marmite. Haven't seen you for a while. It's good to see you. Hello, Tim. Weather in the UK at 9:35 p.m. is 17.2 and 60 degrees. 17.2 and 60 degrees, 60% that is. So 17.2 and 60, that's cooler and a little less humid than here. It's a much nicer day here. 17.2 and 62. You're kind of in the green zone there, Tim. Looking nice. Did the rain stop? Hello, Ray. 20 and 63 midday in Washington. 20 and 63. You're right in the green zone too. Both you and Tim are having beautiful weather. Evelyn says good morning to everybody. Good morning, Evelyn. Marmite says thank you. Tim says hi to Evelyn. Evelyn says hi to Ray. Robert says hi to everybody. Robert says current temp in Southeast Ontario, 30C and 41. Here in the red zone for temperature and 41 in the blue zone for humidity. That's an interesting combo. Robert says hi to Robert. Tim says hi to Robert. Evelyn says hi to Robert. Jim Bird. Hey, good to see you, our pilot friend here. Good morning, Kurt. 20C and 82 here today. 20C, green 82. So a little bit up on the humidity side, really nice on the temperature side where you are, Jim Jam birds. It's good to hear from you. Good to see you. Quite muggy as we've had some rain pass through. It does that, doesn't it? But I imagine that has a whole different feeling when you're up in the air, right? The weather. Is it true pilots don't fly through thunderstorms? I heard that was the case. They fly around them. Do big jets fly through thunderstorms, I wonder? We just fly above them, don't you? Robert says hi to Jim Jam Birds. Jim Jam Birds says hi to Robert. Hope you're staying clear of the wildfire smoke. Oh, yeah. Tim says, probably my daily retirement annoyance is my early morning walks, and you say morning to another walker, no one else about, and they don't acknowledge you back, kind of infuriating you in a way. That's interesting. We do the same thing here, although we say Ohayo gozaimasu, and a lot of the old Japanese men have a very macho way of saying it, which is always interesting. I haven't heard that for a while, though. But I say to myself, you can't put the world or people to rights, Tim. And maybe they have, there's a hornet, maybe they have some reason to do that. But I hear you, Tim. Sometimes, be common courtesy, right? Evelyn says, I'm wondering if your newer listeners are aware that you read the Bible every day. I was going to say read faithfully. Yes, I do, in fact, read the Bible every day. I don't know that they do. Hold on. I read this morning, in fact, Evelyn, I read it just as I'm getting started. I'm almost done, almost completed another round. I'm in the book of John right now. And I was reading John 14 this morning. Jesus, the way to the Father. A lot of quotable passages in there, including "I am the way and the truth and the life" is right there. Interesting to note. So yeah, I do read. People don't know. I read the Bible each and every morning. It's the first thing, literally the first thing I do. I sit there and I have my beautiful Bible, my NIV Bible. It's even got my name on it, and I just read it around and around and around. I read it from front to back. I get to the back, and then I go back to the front, and I start all over again. Now, I'm probably, when I finish this round, which I'm almost done, I'm going to read the Quran because, which I haven't read, because I do once in a while get people writing to me and saying, have you read these other, books? And I haven't. The reason I read the Bible so much is largely because, well, I'm very interested in it. I mean, it's the cornerstone for my whole family. I mean, all my family are Christians. So, this is the cornerstone for their belief in the world. So it helps me to understand my family and my culture's belief. But also, if you're reading books like Moby Dick, which I'm currently still reading, I mean, if you're Bible literate, then this book makes a lot more sense. Call me Ishmael, right? There's just so many Bible references in here that you can get if you can enjoy great literature better if you read the Bible. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out, everyone. I forgot to mention that. And by the way, I do have one of the books that I've written is called Freeway Bible Study. It's available on Amazon. I almost never talk about it. There's a whole YouTube playlist that has my entire daily review of the Bible, all the way to from Genesis 1 to Exodus 21, which is where I finally stopped the book, which is good because the book Freeway Bible Study was getting rather big at that point. But it was my Freeway Bible Study was, after I do my daily Bible reading, I would then, like I'm doing now, I would then review it out loud. Probably in the scheme of things, Freeway Bible Study is, if I'm imagining my great-great-grandchildren, that's one of the ones that I would hope that would survive and get to them, because that was an important book for me. Okay, thank you, Evelyn, for pointing that out. Robert says hi to Jim Jam Birds. You don't really notice anything other than the slight scent of it. It's normally very clean air here. We had that same experience in Southern California when we'd have fires. Even if it was far away, you'd have that scent. Tim says, no rain today, been a lovely day for being outdoors. Very nice. We're going to get some rain, I think, mid-morning this morning. I hope so. My water buckets are all empty. We have Jim Jam going on, answering my question about clouds. We avoid them. Very dangerous to fly through them, so we try to go around them as far as practical. Would you ever, Jim Jam, what do you think about those storm chaser So it's like big old reinforced aircraft that can go into hurricanes. What a ride that would be. Marmite says, "Hi Kurt, can you update your video descriptions to include the store link? I'm sure it would help." There's a good idea. That's a good idea. Well, and I have two stores. I have the store on YouTube, which is almost exclusively antiques. Then I have the eBay store, which is becoming a merchandise place. So the coupons don't work on the eBay store. They work on the YouTube store. It's because I have a whole different mechanism over there. Yeah, that's a great idea. I should update. I can do that. I can update the default ones that do. And thank you. I appreciate that. It's a good idea. Thank you, Mom Eddie. Well, anyway, we've reached the end of comments. Thank you, everybody, for joining me this morning. One final look at the weather. It's been about 20, 30 minutes since I started. It was 28.5 degrees when I started. It is now solidly 30 degrees. So it's risen a degree and a half in about 25 minutes. And it was 72% humidity before, and it's now 62%. So humidity has dropped 10%, and temperature has risen a degree and a half. Thanks, Robert. Have a nice day, everybody. Be safe and not too safe, friends. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.